Ethan Drake had always been curious about the stars. From a young age, he spent hours gazing out of the wide windows of his family's home on Earth, imagining what lay beyond the familiar blue sky. Now, as a young human diplomat stationed at the Alaris space station, he had a view of countless worlds. Planets spun like gems in the distance, and the light of distant suns shimmered across the station's metallic surfaces. Humanity had traveled far into the galaxy, earning respect and fascination from countless alien civilizations. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for the message he had received that morning. The message was unusual. It came not as a standard communication, but as a delicate, almost artistic transmission. Strange light patterns danced across his screen, accompanied by a sequence of tones that he quickly realized were not random. They were a form of communication used by the Xylan, a mysterious alien race known for their secrecy and their elegant ways. The Xylan were unlike any species Ethan had encountered. They rarely revealed their faces and valued emotions, perception, and connection over appearances. Rumors among interstellar diplomats suggested that a Xylan bond between partners was the deepest form of connection imaginable, more profound than anything humans had ever experienced. Ethan felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. The transmission had an unexpected purpose. It was a marriage proposal. The sender, a Xylan identified only by her elegant energy signature, invited him to become her partner in the traditional Xylan way. Ethan had never met her, and according to Xylan custom, he might not meet her face for months, or perhaps longer. It was a challenge unlike anything he had faced before. Most humans would have hesitated, unsure of committing to such an unknown. But Ethan felt something else, a spark of intrigue. Humanity had survived countless challenges, adapted to strange worlds, and formed alliances with civilizations that seemed impossible to understand. If humans could thrive in the galaxy, perhaps they could thrive in an entirely new kind of relationship as well. Ethan spent hours preparing. He studied Xylan culture, poring over reports from other diplomats and scientists. He learned that their society did not measure beauty by looks, but by resonance, the way a being expressed its thoughts, feelings, and intentions. Humans often relied on appearances to form judgments, but the Xylan valued subtler qualities: patience, empathy, intuition, and the ability to communicate without words. The more he read, the more he realized how challenging this would be. His bride would evaluate him not by how he looked, but by how well he could understand her, respond to her presence, and connect on an emotional level. Despite his initial nerves, Ethan could not suppress his excitement. There was a thrill in the unknown, a sense of adventure that reminded him why he had chosen this life. When he finally replied to the Xylan, he expressed curiosity, willingness, and respect for her traditions. His response was sent with care, translated into the subtle energy patterns that the Xylan would understand, ensuring that every thought and intention was conveyed honestly. Days passed. The space station buzzed with the usual activity, but Ethan's mind remained focused on what was to come. Supplies for the wedding ceremony arrived from distant worlds, each item more intricate than the last. Alien fabrics shimmered with colors that humans could barely perceive. Crystals that pulsed with energy were arranged carefully in the ceremonial hall. The Xylan had a talent for making even a functional object into a piece of art, and Ethan marveled at the delicate balance between practicality and beauty. When the day finally arrived, Ethan felt a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness. He stepped into the ceremonial chamber, which seemed to float in a space of its own. Gravity was subtle here, allowing light and objects to drift in gentle arcs. The walls shimmered with patterns of moving light that seemed almost alive, shifting with a rhythm that felt both alien and comforting. Guests from various civilizations were present, their forms unlike anything he had ever seen. Some had wings, some had multiple eyes, and some seemed to glow from within. Yet none of these differences intimidated him. Humans had a reputation for adaptability, and he reminded himself that they had earned that respect through ingenuity, courage, and empathy. The ceremony began. Ethan observed in awe as the Xylan rituals unfolded. Their movements were precise, almost like a language of their own. Hands, or equivalents thereof, shifted in delicate gestures that conveyed messages deeper than words. Harmonies of sound filled the room, creating an emotional atmosphere that humans were only beginning to understand. It was unlike anything he had experienced, an environment where intellect and feeling merged, and where connection was expressed through more than speech or action. When it was time for him to approach the veil that concealed his bride, Ethan felt a nervous flutter. The veil was translucent, a shimmering barrier that refracted the soft light of the chamber into a spectrum that danced around his eyes. He could not see her face, her exact form, or her expressions. Yet when he placed his hand on the energy crystal between them, he felt something extraordinary. A current of understanding passed through him, subtle yet undeniable. It was as if she had reached out, not with words, but with thought, presence, and intent. The emotions were overwhelming. Respect, curiosity, and warmth flowed into him, and he instinctively responded with his own. He remembered all the qualities humans were admired for in the galaxy: adaptability, compassion, courage, and realized that in this moment they mattered more than appearance. He did not know exactly what she looked like, and yet he felt connected in a way that transcended the ordinary. Guests watched quietly, some expressing admiration for the boldness of humanity, others simply observing the elegance of the ritual. Ethan took a deep breath and focused on what he could control: his own intentions and openness. In this strange, beautiful ceremony, he understood that humanity had been trusted not because of strength or appearance, but because of the qualities that truly mattered: empathy, resilience, and the courage to embrace the unknown. By the end of the ceremony, the veil remained in place, as custom dictated. Ethan had not seen her, yet he felt a profound connection. For the first time, he realized that the journey ahead would be about more than discovering her appearance. It would be about understanding her mind, her emotions, and her essence. Humanity had faced countless unknowns in the galaxy, and this was simply another challenge, one of a more intimate and delicate nature. As he left the chamber, Ethan felt a sense of excitement he could not contain. He walked through the corridors of the space station, passing humans and aliens alike, all going about their daily routines. In the quiet of his quarters, he allowed himself to imagine what lay ahead. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but for the first time, one of those mysteries was personal, and he could not wait to explore it. Ethan's mind wandered to the possibilities. He could learn to communicate with her in ways no human had ever imagined. He could experience feelings and thoughts that transcended conventional language, and in doing so, he would show the galaxy the best of what humanity had to offer. Intelligence, courage, and empathy were already respected, but here was a chance to demonstrate humanity's emotional depth as well. As night fell on the space station, Ethan gazed out at the stars once more. They shimmered and danced, distant and beautiful, but tonight, one star, or perhaps one being, held his attention more than all the others. He did not know what she looked like. He did not know how she moved. But he trusted that what mattered most was already present: a connection that transcended appearance, a meeting of minds and hearts, and the promise of a future shaped by understanding, curiosity, and courage. The universe had given him an unusual challenge, and Ethan Drake felt ready. Humanity had survived and thrived against the odds, and now he would face this personal journey with the same courage and adaptability. Whatever awaited him on the wedding night, he knew one thing for certain: he was about to witness a testament to human resilience and the power of connection in a way no one could have imagined. The morning of the wedding day dawned with a soft glow that filtered through the station's transparent ceilings. Ethan Drake could feel the excitement buzzing through the corridors. The Alaris space station was alive with preparation, a mixture of human efficiency and Xylan elegance. Everywhere he looked, beings from across the galaxy moved with purpose, arranging decorations, polishing surfaces, and preparing the ceremonial hall for an event that had become the talk of multiple star systems. Ethan himself felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Today, he would meet his bride for the first time, though not in the way humans were used to. The Xylan had insisted on keeping their faces concealed, respecting the tradition that emotional and intellectual resonance mattered far more than physical appearance. Ethan had spent days preparing, practicing patience, empathy, and attentiveness, the very qualities that the Xylan valued above all else. He knew he could not rely on instinct alone. This would be a test of connection, understanding, and humanity's ability to adapt. The ceremonial hall was a marvel. Suspended in a chamber that seemed to float in zero gravity, it was filled with gently drifting lights, bioluminescent vines, and crystal ornaments that refracted every color imaginable. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, subtle vibrations that humans could barely detect, but which the Xylan could interpret as emotion. Guests gathered in anticipation, their forms diverse and striking. Some had translucent skin that shimmered with inner light, while others floated effortlessly above the floor. Ethan observed them all without fear. Humans had earned their place among the stars through ingenuity and courage, and he knew his presence would be accepted as a representative of that spirit. The bride remained behind a translucent veil at the center of the hall. It shimmered with colors that shifted constantly, refracting light in ways that made her presence feel almost ethereal. Ethan approached slowly, his heart racing. He could not see her features, but he could sense her energy, a subtle pulse that was both calming and electrifying. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Humanity had always valued bravery and ingenuity, but here was a lesson in the power of empathy, patience, and perception. He realized that this was a test, not just of his understanding, but of his ability to connect on a level deeper than appearances. The ceremony began with a sequence of gestures, each movement deliberate and meaningful. The Xylan moved in perfect synchronization, hands, or equivalents thereof, gliding through the air in patterns that seemed impossible yet elegant. These gestures were not just dances. They were a form of language expressing thoughts and emotions without a single word. Ethan did his best to follow, mimicking the motions as accurately as he could. He could feel a connection forming, subtle but undeniable, as if the energy of the room itself was teaching him how to communicate. Soft harmonies filled the chamber, produced by instruments that vibrated in resonance with the participants' emotional states. Ethan had read about these instruments in the reports, but experiencing them firsthand was overwhelming. The sounds were not merely music. They were living expressions of emotion, weaving threads of understanding between all present. He felt his own feelings, nervousness, excitement, curiosity, amplified and reflected back at him, creating a bond that went beyond mere observation. Humanity had always been praised for its creativity, but here, in this alien ritual, that creativity was being measured in emotional intelligence rather than artistic skill. Finally, the moment came for him to approach the veil. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. The energy crystal at the center of the hall glowed as he extended his hand toward it. The moment his fingers touched its surface, a rush of understanding passed through him. It was subtle, a quiet wave that spoke volumes. He realized that the Xylan bride was communicating not through sight or speech, but through resonance. Every intention, every emotion was transmitted directly to him in a language humans could only begin to comprehend. He responded instinctively, sending back his own intentions and emotions: respect, curiosity, courage, and a deep desire to understand. The crystal pulsed in reply, confirming that the connection was being recognized. Ethan felt a thrill run through him. This was no ordinary bond. It was a meeting of minds, a merging of perception and understanding, a testament to the power of humanity's empathy and adaptability. Across the galaxy, humans were admired for their intelligence and ingenuity. Tonight, Ethan would prove that humans were capable of something even more remarkable: deep, genuine connection beyond appearances. The ceremony continued with a series of tests, each designed to measure the bond between partners. Ethan had to interpret subtle shifts in light, sound, and movement, responding appropriately to each one. At times, he faltered, unsure of whether he was reading the signals correctly. But the Xylan bride remained patient, guiding him gently, correcting him without words. He realized that patience and attentiveness were just as important as understanding. Humanity had faced countless challenges, adapting to alien worlds and complex situations. This was simply another challenge, one of emotional dexterity rather than physical skill or technological knowledge. Time seemed to stretch in the ceremonial chamber. Hours passed, though Ethan barely noticed. Each gesture, each pulse of energy, deepened his understanding of the Xylan way of connection. He began to anticipate responses, to feel the rhythm of their interaction, and to send back signals of his own that were received with warmth and approval. The veil that separated them remained in place, but it felt less like a barrier and more like a bridge. Ethan realized that he was not just meeting his bride. He was participating in an entirely new form of communication, one that transcended conventional human experience. Guests watched silently, many impressed by the display of connection. Humans were often admired for their courage, their ability to solve problems, and their resilience. But here, Ethan was demonstrating something deeper: the ability to adapt emotionally, to understand and respond to a completely alien form of intelligence, and to form a genuine bond without relying on sight or conventional cues. It was a testament to humanity's capacity for empathy and connection, qualities that had allowed them to thrive across the stars. Eventually, the ritual drew to a close. Ethan's hand remained on the crystal, and he could feel the quiet, steady pulse of his bride's energy. It was calming, reassuring, and invigorating all at once. Though he had never seen her face, he felt that he understood her in a way few humans could ever hope to understand anyone. He realized that Xylan beauty was not something to be observed. It was something to be felt, expressed, and shared. Humanity had always valued physical appearance, but here he was learning a new truth. That true connection was measured by empathy, attentiveness, and mutual respect. As the ceremony ended, the Xylan officiant acknowledged Ethan and his bride. Though no words were exchanged, the meaning was clear. The bond had been accepted, the connection validated. Ethan felt a swell of pride and relief. He had stepped into the unknown, embraced a culture far different from his own, and emerged not just unscathed, but enriched. Humanity had once again proven that its greatest strength was not physical might or technological prowess, but emotional intelligence, adaptability, and courage. Later, as the hall emptied and preparations for the private part of the evening began, Ethan found himself alone for a moment, gazing out at the stars through the station's observation deck. He reflected on what had just happened, marveling at the elegance and depth of Xylan culture. Humanity had traveled far and faced many unknowns, but this challenge was personal, intimate, and transformative. He felt a thrill of anticipation for the night ahead, when he would share a private space with his bride and experience the next step of their connection. Ethan's thoughts wandered to what he could learn, how he could respond, and how he could show the best of humanity. He realized that this was an opportunity not just for personal growth, but for representing humans across the galaxy. Every interaction, every choice, every gesture would be a testament to the qualities that had made humanity respected among alien civilizations: courage, curiosity, empathy, and resilience. The sun of a distant star cast a soft glow over the station, reflecting in Ethan's eyes. He felt ready. Whatever awaited him on his wedding night, he knew it would be an adventure unlike any other. He had faced unknown worlds, alien species, and complex political challenges before. But this was a challenge of the heart and mind, one that required patience, empathy, and understanding. And he knew that humanity, with all its strengths, could rise to the occasion. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the hum of the station beneath his feet. He knew that tonight he would meet his bride in a way that would redefine his understanding of connection, trust, and love. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and wonders, but here was one he was about to explore firsthand. And he could not wait. The private quarters had been prepared with extraordinary care. The room floated in the center of the space station, surrounded by transparent walls that allowed Ethan to see the cosmos stretching infinitely in every direction. Light from distant stars drifted in softly, mingling with the gentle glow of bioluminescent crystals that pulsed in harmony with the station's energy. Everything about the space felt alive, as though it had been designed not merely for function, but to heighten perception and emotion. Ethan's heart raced with a mix of nervousness and excitement. Tonight, he would share a space with his Xylan bride, communicating in ways no human had experienced before. The veil that had concealed her face during the ceremony still separated them. Ethan could not see her appearance, yet he sensed her presence immediately. The energy she radiated was subtle, a soft pulse that he instinctively recognized as curiosity and warmth. It was like standing in the presence of someone brilliant, someone who understood the universe in ways he could barely imagine. For a moment, he wondered if he would be able to meet the challenge of connecting with a being so different from himself. Then he reminded himself of humanity's greatest strengths: adaptability, empathy, and courage. A series of soft lights glowed along the floor, indicating where he should stand. As he moved into position, the Xylan bride began a sequence of gestures that Ethan quickly realized were her form of greeting. The movements were elegant, fluid, and deliberate, conveying welcome and interest. He mimicked them as best he could, aware that his own gestures were clumsy in comparison. Yet in a subtle way, she acknowledged his efforts, and the room seemed to vibrate with approval. Ethan felt a thrill. Despite his inexperience, connection was forming. The first hours were a mixture of exploration and learning. Ethan discovered that the Xylan communicated not just through gestures, but through energy pulses that conveyed emotion. Curiosity, playfulness, and calm flowed through her presence, and he responded with the emotions he hoped to convey: respect, openness, and attentiveness. At first, it was exhausting. His mind had to interpret signals he had never encountered before. But gradually he began to sense patterns, subtle repetitions that indicated meaning. It was as though he was learning a new language, one that could express thought and feeling far more richly than words alone. The bride led him to a platform in the center of the room. The floor beneath them was made of a translucent material that displayed shifting images of alien landscapes, forests that glowed softly in the dark, cities that floated above the clouds, and oceans that reflected multiple suns. She guided his hands to the surface, where he could feel subtle vibrations under his fingertips. Each pulse corresponded to an emotion, a story, or a thought. Ethan realized that she was teaching him to perceive her world as she did. He marveled at the depth of perception this required. Humanity had always been praised for creativity and intelligence, but this was something beyond conventional skill. It demanded empathy, focus, and the ability to adapt rapidly. As the night progressed, Ethan found himself laughing and smiling in response to her energy. She shared moments of humor in ways humans could understand, subtle quivers of light that mirrored the inflections of speech he would recognize. He responded with gestures of his own, sending small pulses of energy meant to convey warmth and amusement. She seemed delighted by his efforts, guiding him when he misinterpreted signals, but never judging. Ethan realized that patience and willingness to learn were as important as instinctive understanding. Humanity had faced countless challenges, adapting to strange worlds and unpredictable situations. This was simply another challenge, one that tested emotional intelligence rather than survival skills. There was a moment when Ethan paused, overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience. He realized that he had never felt so connected to another being, never understood so fully without a single word. The veil that separated them no longer felt like a barrier. Instead, it was a medium, a way for them to experience each other's essence without distraction. He marveled at the fact that humans often judged by appearance alone, while here he was being tested, celebrated, and understood entirely through his mind and heart. At one point, she guided him to a smaller chamber within the room. The walls were covered in crystal panels that reacted to their energy. Every movement, every thought made the surfaces shimmer, displaying colors and shapes that conveyed mutual understanding. Ethan extended his hand toward one panel, and it responded with gentle pulses. He sensed her delight and responded with his own warmth. The patterns grew more intricate, like a dialogue expressed in light and energy rather than words. For the first time, Ethan felt the profound beauty of Xylan communication. It was precise, elegant, and deeply personal. Hours passed, though he lost track of time. Ethan discovered that connection required focus, empathy, and subtle responsiveness. He began to notice nuances he had previously missed. A slight shift in the intensity of her energy, a gentle change in the vibration of the crystals, or a rhythmic pulse that indicated curiosity or amusement. Every small detail mattered. Humanity had been praised for exploration and innovation, but here was a new kind of frontier, emotional and intellectual resonance, a frontier that demanded adaptability, creativity, and courage. Ethan began to share his own memories and experiences. He projected moments of his childhood, simple joys like climbing trees or watching the first snowfall, and larger memories of accomplishment and challenge. The Xylan responded with gentle waves of interest and delight, guiding him to deeper understanding. For the first time, he realized that humans had a unique ability to form connections across differences. Their emotional depth, curiosity, and ingenuity allowed them to communicate in ways even advanced alien civilizations could admire. As the night deepened, Ethan found himself reflecting on humanity's place in the galaxy. The Xylan had chosen him not because of looks or power, but because humans possessed qualities they valued: empathy, courage, creativity, and the ability to adapt. He felt proud not for himself alone, but for his species. Humanity had always been underestimated, and yet time and again they had demonstrated resilience, ingenuity, and heart. Here, in this quiet chamber, he was living proof that humans could connect deeply, even with beings who seemed incomprehensible at first. Eventually, the bride guided him back to the center of the room, where the crystal surfaces now reflected their combined energy. Ethan reached out instinctively, feeling a surge of understanding and warmth. She responded, and for the first time he felt the full depth of their connection. There was no need for sight or words. Their thoughts, emotions, and intentions flowed together seamlessly. Ethan realized that this was what the Xylan valued most: true resonance, an unspoken agreement of understanding, trust, and mutual respect. By the time the night drew toward its end, Ethan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had never experienced anything like this. He had laughed, explored, learned, and connected in ways that were completely new to him. And yet, despite the strangeness of the experience, he felt a profound sense of home. He realized that humanity's greatest gift was not simply intelligence or technology, but the capacity to understand, empathize, and adapt. These qualities had earned humans respect across the stars, and tonight, they had allowed him to form a bond unlike anything else in the galaxy. As the soft glow of the bioluminescent crystals began to fade in anticipation of dawn, Ethan sat quietly, reflecting on the lessons of the night. He had entered the private quarters uncertain, curious, and nervous. He had emerged connected, confident, and profoundly changed. Humanity had always faced the unknown with courage and creativity, and here was yet another example, a challenge not of survival but of connection, trust, and understanding. Finally, the veil that had concealed his bride's form remained in place, but it no longer mattered. Ethan did not need to see her to know the depth of her presence, the intelligence of her mind, and the warmth of her heart. He had experienced the kind of connection that transcended physical appearance, a testament to the power of empathy, understanding, and courage. Humans had long been admired for exploration and invention, but here, in this quiet chamber among the stars, Ethan understood that they were capable of something far more profound: true, meaningful resonance with another being, no matter how different. Ethan took a deep breath and smiled, feeling a quiet certainty. The universe was vast and filled with mysteries, but he had discovered one of its greatest wonders: connection without barriers, understanding without sight, and the proof that humanity's greatest strengths were not just survival or intelligence, but heart, courage, and empathy. He knew that whatever the future held, he would face it with confidence, curiosity, and the unshakable belief that humans could rise to meet any challenge, no matter how unfamiliar or extraordinary. The room felt alive with quiet energy as Ethan Drake settled into the rhythm of his new connection with his Xylan bride. By now, he had begun to sense patterns in her presence, subtle flows of emotion and thought that allowed him to anticipate her responses. But tonight was different. Tonight, the veil that had separated them since the ceremony remained in place, yet he could feel her guiding him toward something deeper, something that transcended the simple gestures and pulses of light they had practiced. She moved in a way that was both deliberate and gentle, guiding him toward a platform in the center of the room. The translucent surface shimmered with colors that reflected their combined energy, and Ethan realized that the environment itself was a kind of language. The Xylan were teaching him not merely to perceive, but to understand, to read emotion, intention, and curiosity as one would read a story. Humanity had always excelled at solving problems, adapting to alien environments, and forming alliances with other species. Yet this challenge required something beyond intellect or bravery. It demanded empathy, attentiveness, and the courage to embrace uncertainty. Ethan's mind and body responded instinctively to her guidance. Each movement, each pulse of energy conveyed meaning, and he mirrored it in return. At first, he had worried about making mistakes, about failing to understand her fully. But the Xylan bride was patient. She adjusted her signals gently, creating a conversation in light and energy that was intricate yet accessible. Ethan realized that she was teaching him how to see her world without relying on sight, to hear her intentions without words, and to feel her thoughts without explanation. It was a level of understanding that humans had rarely achieved, yet he was beginning to grasp it. As the night deepened, the chamber around them began to shift subtly. Crystalline structures rose from the floor, casting light that danced and twisted in patterns designed to reflect emotion and intention. Ethan placed his hands on one of the crystals and felt a surge of energy that resonated with the pulse of his own heartbeat. The Xylan bride responded immediately, sending back waves of warmth and curiosity. It was as if the room itself were participating in their dialogue, translating emotion into visible patterns that human senses could perceive. Humanity had long been known for ingenuity and creativity, but this experience revealed a new kind of frontier: the art of resonance, the ability to form profound connection through presence alone. Ethan began to share more of himself. Memories of Earth, of childhood adventures, and moments of personal triumph flowed through him in pulses of energy. He sent thoughts of climbing trees, feeling rain on his face and gazing at the night sky, hoping she would sense the joy, wonder, and curiosity he had carried through life. She responded with soft, intricate shifts of light and movement, creating a conversation that needed no words. Ethan felt a thrill. Humans could explore alien worlds, negotiate interstellar conflicts, and innovate in technology, but here, their most powerful qualities were being measured in empathy, creativity, and the courage to open oneself completely. For a long while, they explored together in silence. Ethan learned to notice the subtlest of signals, a slight flicker in the crystals, a shift in her energy, or a gentle pulse that indicated curiosity. Every small movement carried meaning, and he responded with care. Humanity had always been praised for their adaptability, but this was a new kind of adaptation, one of emotion and perception rather than survival or strategy. By the end of the exploration, Ethan felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment and awe. He was communicating, connecting, and understanding in a way that transcended human norms, and he realized that this was what the Xylan valued most, the ability to form a bond that went beyond sight, words, and appearance. At one point, she guided him to a small chamber within the room where the walls shimmered with holographic visions of her world. Forests glowed with bioluminescent flora, rivers sparkled with multiple reflections of suns, and floating cities stretched across the horizon. She encouraged him to explore with his senses, to feel the landscapes, to interpret them through the emotions they conveyed. Ethan's mind stretched in ways it never had before. He realized that humanity's creativity and intelligence were vital, but empathy and openness were what allowed him to perceive these visions as more than images. They were expressions of life, culture, and understanding. The hours passed, and Ethan lost track of time. He was no longer merely observing, he was participating, contributing, and responding. The veil still separated them physically, but it had become a conduit, a bridge through which understanding flowed freely. He understood now that Xylan beauty was not visual. It was the depth of thought, the richness of emotion, and the ability to form genuine connection. Humanity had always measured beauty in appearance or skill, but here, in the quiet intimacy of the chamber, Ethan grasped a new truth. Connection was measured in understanding, trust, and shared experience. He shared stories of human courage and ingenuity, of moments when humans had faced impossible odds and persevered through empathy, creativity, and intelligence. She responded with joy, curiosity, and gentle amusement, reinforcing the bond between them. Ethan realized that humans had always been capable of remarkable achievement, but it was their ability to adapt emotionally, to form connection across differences, and to understand beings vastly unlike themselves that made them exceptional in the galaxy. As the night drew on, Ethan's confidence grew. He moved with her through the shifting room, responding to her signals with accuracy and care. Every pulse, every gesture, every wave of light was a conversation in its purest form, free from misunderstanding. Humanity had always been praised for exploration, innovation, and courage, but here was a moment that demonstrated something deeper, the ability to understand, empathize, and connect across the most profound divides. At one point, she guided him to a central platform where their combined energies reflected in the crystals around them. Ethan reached out instinctively, sending a pulse of warmth and respect. She responded immediately, a delicate echo that resonated in perfect harmony with his own energy. He realized that this was the true test of their bond, not simply learning her signals, but forming a seamless dialogue that expressed intention, curiosity, and mutual understanding. Humans had always been admired for their problem-solving skills, but tonight, Ethan understood that the greatest human strength was heart, the courage to open oneself, to trust, and to connect. Time seemed to stand still. Ethan felt completely immersed in the experience, and yet he sensed the universe around him as vividly as ever. Stars sparkled outside the transparent walls, distant worlds glimmered in the void, and yet the most important connection was the one he was forming right here, with a being whose form he had yet to see. Humanity had always reached for the stars, and now he realized that reaching for connection was just as vital. By the time the first light of dawn filtered through the station's ceilings, Ethan was exhausted yet exhilarated. He had learned to communicate, understand, and connect in ways that surpassed anything he had imagined. The veil still concealed her, but it no longer mattered. He felt her presence as clearly as he could feel his own heartbeat, and he understood her mind and spirit in ways words could never convey. Humanity had always been celebrated for ingenuity and resilience, But here, in the quiet intimacy of this chamber, Ethan had experienced a triumph of empathy, courage, and heart. As he rested, Ethan reflected on what he had learned. He had entered the night nervous and uncertain, unsure if he could meet the challenge of understanding a being so different from himself. He had emerged confident, connected, and profoundly changed. Humanity had once again proven its value in the galaxy, not through technology, strength, or conquest, but through qualities that were uniquely human: curiosity, empathy, adaptability, and courage. Ethan smiled as he realized that the journey was just beginning. The Xylan bride had shared glimpses of her world, her thoughts, and her humor, and he had responded in kind. Tomorrow, he would continue to explore this connection, learning and growing alongside her. Humanity's capacity for empathy, understanding, and courage had brought him this far, and he knew it would carry him even further. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to form a connection that transcended physical appearance, culture, or language. The Xylan had shown him that beauty and value were measured not in form, but in thought, intention, and understanding. Humanity had always excelled in survival and innovation, but now Ethan had experienced a triumph that was more personal, more profound, and more rewarding than any technological achievement or diplomatic success. He closed his eyes and allowed himself to feel the presence of his bride, the quiet resonance of their connection, and the promise of the future. The universe stretched endlessly beyond the station, full of mysteries and challenges, yet Ethan felt prepared. Humanity had survived and thrived in the galaxy not only because of intelligence and ingenuity, but because of heart. And tonight, he had witnessed the most extraordinary proof of that truth. The first light of the distant star filtered softly through the walls of the private quarters, casting a gentle glow over the bioluminescent crystals that still pulsed faintly in response to the lingering energy of the night. Ethan Drake felt a quiet calm settle over him. The previous night had been nothing short of extraordinary. He had learned to communicate, understand, and connect with his Xylan bride in ways he had never imagined possible. Every pulse, every subtle gesture, every wave of energy had taught him more about her, about Xylan culture, and about the depths of humanity's own potential. For a long moment, he simply sat, feeling the warmth of her presence even though the veil still separated them. He had come to understand that physical appearance was insignificant in comparison to the resonance they shared. Humanity had always been celebrated across the galaxy for its intelligence, creativity, and courage. But in this quiet, floating chamber, he had discovered the greatest strength humans possessed: the ability to connect deeply, empathize fully, and adapt to challenges that went beyond logic and reason. The Xylan bride moved closer, her presence more pronounced, guiding him with gentle pulses of energy. She had led him through a journey of perception, teaching him to understand her world and to express his own thoughts and feelings in response. Ethan realized that every human quality admired by alien civilizations, curiosity, adaptability, courage, and empathy, had played a role in allowing him to meet her on equal footing. In essence, he had embodied humanity at its finest, and it had earned him a bond that transcended appearances, language, and culture. For the first time, she guided him to a platform at the center of the room. The crystals responded immediately to their combined energy, shimmering in complex patterns that reflected harmony, understanding, and trust. Ethan felt a surge of anticipation. He had spent the night learning to communicate through light, sound, and subtle vibrations of energy. He had shared his memories, his thoughts, and his emotions. And now it seemed the final step of their journey together was at hand. The veil shimmered not as a barrier, but as a symbol of trust. Slowly, it began to lift, revealing her form. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, but not because of conventional beauty. What he saw was far more remarkable: a being whose presence radiated intelligence, kindness, and depth. Her eyes, or the Xylan equivalent, glimmered with curiosity and warmth, reflecting not only her own thoughts but an awareness of him, his experiences, and his essence. She did not need to be beautiful in the human sense. She was magnificent because she embodied understanding, empathy, and the profound ability to connect. Ethan reached out instinctively, and she responded with a gentle touch, a pulse of energy that made his entire being vibrate with recognition. In that moment, he understood that the Xylan had chosen him not for his looks, his status, or his accomplishments, but for the qualities that truly defined humanity: courage, empathy, curiosity, and the capacity to form bonds across unimaginable divides. He felt honored and humbled, yet filled with exhilaration. Humanity had always sought to explore the stars, to learn, and to grow. Tonight, Ethan realized that the most extraordinary exploration was the journey of understanding and connecting with another being, one that required heart as much as mind. They began to communicate more freely now, their energy pulses flowing in an intricate dance that words could never capture. He shared thoughts of hope, joy, and curiosity. She responded with equivalent pulses, sending waves of encouragement, amusement, and warmth. They laughed silently together, the soundless laughter of minds and hearts that had found resonance. Ethan realized that this was the ultimate human achievement, the ability to meet another being completely, to understand without needing to see, to connect without needing language. Hours passed, though Ethan felt no fatigue, only a deepening sense of unity. The room shifted subtly, crystals rising and falling, reflecting their combined energy in mesmerizing patterns. The experience was exhilarating yet grounding, a testament to humanity's ability to rise to challenges that demanded more than ingenuity or strength. They required courage, patience, empathy, and a willingness to open oneself completely. And in that, Ethan felt a profound pride, not merely in himself but in humanity as a whole. The Xylan bride guided him to a small alcove where the crystal walls displayed visions of her homeworld. Ethan marveled at the landscapes, floating cities that glimmered under twin suns, forests that glowed in colors beyond human perception, oceans reflecting a sky filled with 3 moons. Each vision conveyed not just beauty, but meaning, history, culture, and emotion embedded in every ripple and glow. He realized that humans had always been admired for exploration and invention, but here was a reminder that the greatest exploration was of understanding and empathy, the ability to truly see and feel the world through another's perspective. As dawn approached on the distant horizon of space, Ethan reflected on how far he had come. He had entered this union with curiosity and courage, unsure of what he would find. He had been tested in ways he had never imagined, learning to interpret thought, energy, and emotion with precision and care. And now, having met the Xylan bride fully, he felt a profound sense of completion. The bond they shared was not dependent on sight, appearance, or even conventional language. It existed in understanding, trust, and resonance, the qualities that had allowed humanity to thrive and be respected across the stars. He shared memories of Earth, small and large, simple and grand. She responded with joy and curiosity, acknowledging his thoughts and feelings with waves of energy that conveyed amusement, understanding, and warmth. He realized that humans had an unmatched capacity to form bonds, not just with their own species, but across unimaginable differences. The Xylan had chosen him for this very reason, recognizing the best qualities of humanity and valuing them above all else. Ethan and his bride spent hours exploring these ideas, sharing visions, memories, and emotions. They laughed, marveled, and connected deeply, each pulse of energy strengthening the trust and understanding between them. The veil, once a symbol of mystery and separation, had become unnecessary. Yet it remained in place as a reminder of the journey they had undertaken together, the growth, patience, and courage that had led them to this point. As the distant star rose fully over the horizon, Ethan realized something profound. Beauty, connection, and value were not defined by appearances, species, or language. They were defined by understanding, empathy, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. Humanity had always thrived because of these qualities, but here he experienced their ultimate expression. He felt pride not for himself alone, but for the entire human race, whose potential for connection and understanding had earned him a place among the stars. Finally, the Xylan bride moved closer, their energies intertwining in a seamless, harmonious pattern. Ethan could feel every nuance, every subtle shift, every wave of thought and emotion. He understood her fully, not through sight, but through resonance and connection. In turn, she understood him, and in that moment he realized the true meaning of their union. It was not just marriage, it was the recognition of humanity's greatest strengths, celebrated and mirrored by a being from a world far beyond his own. Ethan smiled as he looked out through the transparent walls at the endless cosmos. The universe was vast, full of challenges, mysteries, and wonders. Yet here, in this quiet chamber among the stars, he had discovered one of its greatest gifts, the ability to connect completely with another being, to form understanding and trust across unimaginable differences, and to celebrate the qualities that made humans remarkable. Courage, curiosity, empathy, and adaptability had brought him to this moment, and he knew they would carry him forward in life, love, and exploration. As he sat quietly, feeling the gentle pulse of his bride's energy, Ethan made a promise, to himself, to her, and to humanity. He would continue to embrace every challenge with courage and curiosity, to explore every unknown with empathy and intelligence, and to celebrate the unique qualities that had earned humans respect across the galaxy. In this moment, he understood something fundamental. The true strength of humanity lay not in conquest, not in technology, not even in survival, but in heart, in understanding, in the ability to connect with the universe, and with each other, on a level that transcended all differences. The Xylan bride's energy pulsed gently in harmony with his own, a rhythm that spoke of trust, joy, and unity. Ethan reached out and felt the subtle warmth of her presence, the quiet assurance that they were bound together not merely by ceremony, but by understanding, respect, and shared experience. The universe stretched endlessly around them, a canvas of stars and worlds, yet the most extraordinary thing in that vast expanse was the bond they shared, a bond that celebrated humanity's finest qualities and proved that connection, empathy, and courage were what truly made humans special. As the day began on the station and the stars shifted in the distant sky, Ethan realized that his journey had only begun. Together, he and his bride would navigate new worlds, new challenges, and new experiences, guided by trust, understanding, and the remarkable human capacity to adapt, empathize, and connect. Humanity had long been admired across the stars, but now, through this union, their most profound strengths were clear. The courage to explore the unknown, the curiosity to understand, and the heart to connect with beings far beyond their own kind. Ethan smiled once more, feeling the quiet, steady pulse of his bride's presence, the gentle hum of the station, and the endless promise of the universe beyond. He had married a mysterious being without ever seeing her, yet he now understood her completely. In doing so, he had discovered something even more important: the extraordinary power of humanity itself, capable of bridging differences, embracing the unknown, and forming bonds that transcended appearance, language, and culture. The future stretched before him, infinite and inviting, and he felt ready to meet it, heart and mind open, alongside the remarkable partner who had shown him that the universe's greatest wonders were found not just in distant stars, but in connection, understanding, and trust.